Welcome to Bookpods. So, 80%.
Yeah, that is just a brutal statistic.
It really is. I mean, that is the staggering number of businesses that will completely fail within their first 5 years.
Just gone.
Right, just gone. And it's a harsh reality. So today, we're going on a deep dive into exactly why that happens and, more importantly, how to actually avoid becoming part of that statistic yourself.
Which is what everyone wants to know.
Exactly. We are decoding a classic business framework from Michael E. Gerber's landmark book, The E-Myth Revisited. And to really unpack this, we're weaving in a bunch of personal accounts from successful entrepreneurs.
Yeah, some really great case studies in our sources today.
For sure. Like, we're specifically looking at how people like YouTuber and former doctor Ali Abdaal took these exact principles and completely transformed how they scale their operations.
Right.
So our ultimate mission for this deep dive is to figure out how to build a business that actually works for you rather than you just working endlessly for it.
And I think that's a crucial distinction for anyone listening right now, honestly, regardless of your current job title.
Oh, totally.
Like whether you are actively dreaming of starting some side hustle in your garage, or maybe you're already running a dedicated team of 20 people.
Or even just managing yourself.
Exactly. Even if you're just trying to manage your own daily workflow inside a massive corporation, these insights fundamentally alter the mechanics of how you view your daily tasks. It just forces you to look at your time and your goals through a totally different lens.
Well, let's just jump right into the core premise of Gerber's work, which is where we get the title of the book, right? The E-Myth, or the Entrepreneurial Myth.
Right, the myth we all kind of buy into.
Yeah, because society has this deeply ingrained, almost romantic idea that businesses are started by these brilliant, visionary entrepreneurs who, see a gap in the market and boldly step into it.
Like a superhero origin story.
Exactly. But the reality is far less romantic. Gerber points out that the vast majority of businesses are actually started by what he calls technicians who suffer from this sudden, overwhelming thing he calls an entrepreneurial seizure.
I love that phrase so much, an entrepreneurial seizure. It just perfectly captures the impulsiveness of it,
It really does.
It's this moment of sheer frustration mixed with just completely misplaced optimism.
Yeah, and to illustrate this, Gerber shares this incredibly vivid story about a woman named Sarah.
Oh, the pie story.
Yes. So Sarah loved baking pies as a little girl. Like her aunt taught her the magic of the whole process, kneading the dough by hand, cutting fresh rhubarb, the incredible smell of the oven filling the house.
Sounds idyllic.
Right. But fast forward a few decades, and Sarah is working this demanding corporate job that she absolutely hates. She's just miserable.
We've all been there.
Yeah. And all her friends and family keep telling her, like, Sarah, you're amazing at this. Your pies are incredible. You should open a pie shop.
The classic encouragement.
Exactly. So she has that exact entrepreneurial seizure you mentioned. She quits her corporate job, she drains her savings, signs a commercial lease, and opens a shop called All About Pies.
And, well, I think we can all guess what happens next. The dream just sours almost immediately.
Very quickly. The dream turns into a literal waking nightmare. She's like waking up at 2 a.m. every single day just to prep the dough for the morning rush.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then working until 10 p.m., scrubbing the floors, cleaning the ovens. She's drowning in rent payments.
Figuring out the accounting software.
Yes, constantly stressing about ordering supplies. She's miserable, she's exhausted, and honestly, the darkest part of the whole story is that she actually ends up hating baking pies.
Right. The one thing she loved has essentially become her prison.
It's awful.
It's tragic, yeah, but it is incredibly common. And Sarah's situation just perfectly encapsulates what Gerber identifies as the fatal assumption.
The fatal assumption. Let's unpack that.
So the fatal assumption is this belief that just because you deeply understand the technical work of a business, so in Sarah's case, baking pies,
Right.
but, it could be writing software code or doing graphic design or filming YouTube videos,
Sure.
you assume that because you know the technical work, you naturally understand a business that does that technical work.
Okay, wait. I have to push back on this a little bit, though.
Okay, go for it.
Because aren't we constantly bombarded with that exact message?
Yeah.
To follow our passion and, do what we love?
All the time, yeah.
We're told that if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. So shouldn't Sarah's absolute love and her undeniable talent for baking be the ultimate key to her success?
I mean, it's a beautiful sentiment. It really is. But it's exactly where so many talented people get completely trapped. Yeah. Because passion for the craft is wonderful. but it actually blinds the technician to the harsh realities of running an operation. When you're solely focused on the technical work, the art of the pie, you are actively ignoring everything else required to keep the doors open.
Ah, I see.
Think about like a brilliant graphic designer who decides to start their own design firm. They have that entrepreneurial seizure, they quit their agency job, and suddenly they realize they aren't actually doing graphic design anymore.
Right, because they're suddenly doing client acquisition and they're chasing down unpaid invoices,
Exactly.
negotiating like software subscription tiers.
Precisely. The passion for the craft makes them assume the business will just naturally run itself, just because the end product is really high quality.
But it doesn't.
No, it doesn't. A business is a completely separate entity from the product it creates. It has its own distinct, very demanding needs. And if no one is attending to those needs, the business collapses, and it takes the technician's passion right down with it.
Yeah, and Sarah's failure isn't just about the physical exhaustion or the accounting software. Gerber argues is actually a profound psychological crisis.
Yes.
There's literally a war going on inside her head between completely different personas. Because to succeed, a business owner actually has to balance 3 distinct internal identities.
Right. The entrepreneur, the manager, and the technician.
The triple threat.
Exactly, the triple threat. And understanding how these 3 personalities constantly fight for control inside you is the key to figuring out why you might be feeling so overwhelmed in your own work right now.
Let's break those down.
Okay, first you have the entrepreneur. This is the visionary,
Wow.
the dreamer. The entrepreneur lives entirely in the future.
Always looking ahead.
Exactly. They see vast opportunities, they ask what if, they embrace the unknown, and they chart the strategic course. Think of someone like Steve Jobs, always looking at what the world will need 5 years from now.
But the entrepreneur can also be a bit chaotic, right? Like they're always chasing the next shiny object and leaving this huge trail of unfinished projects in their wake.
Highly chaotic. They disrupt the status quo by nature, which is exactly why you absolutely need the second persona, the manager.
Okay, the manager.
The manager is the pragmatic organizer. If the entrepreneur lives in the future, the manager lives firmly in the past.
Interesting.
They crave order, they build intricate spreadsheets, they establish consistency, they track the metrics. They're usually the ones running around with the fire extinguisher, cleaning up the operational messes that the visionary entrepreneur just created.
Right. And then, of course, we have the third persona, the one who actually gets their hands dirty, the technician.
Yeah, the technician is the pure doer, the tinkerer. They live entirely in the present moment.
Just doing the work.
Exactly. For the technician, all that high-level visionary thinking and all that spreadsheet strategizing, it just gets in the way of doing the actual tangible work. They just want to put their head down and bake the pie or write the code or edit the video.
Now, in a perfect world, a business owner would have these 3 personas personally balanced, right?
Yeah.
Working in harmony.
In a perfect world, yes. But Gerber notes that the typical small business owner is grossly unbalanced. They're usually operating at about 70% technician, 20% manager, and maybe on a really good day, 10% entrepreneur.
Wow. 7% technician. If you think about it, running a business is exactly like putting on a Broadway musical.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, so you've got the entrepreneur as the visionary director coming up with this grand, sweeping concept for the show.
Right.
And the manager is the stage manager, holding the clipboards, calling the intricate lighting cues, making sure everyone hits their marks on time.
Setting the schedule.
Exactly. And the technician is the actor on stage, delivering the actual lines to the audience.
Okay, yeah.
So if you are 70% technician, that means you've just filled an entire theater with eager actors.
Just actors.
Just actors. There's no script written, there's no rehearsal schedule posted, and there's absolutely no audience out there because no one actually directed or marketed the production.
It's pure chaos. You have all this frantic activity, all this energy being expended on the stage, but it signifies nothing because it lacks structure and direction.
Oh.
And when you only have actors just acting, you end up stuck in what Gerber calls the infancy trap.
Okay, yeah. This maps perfectly onto the actual life cycle of a business.
Yeah.
Because Gerber breaks this down into 3 main stages, right? Infancy, adolescence, and maturity.
Yes. So infancy is the doing it phase.
Come on, stop.
This is the stage where the owner is the business. You
Yeah.
are wearing every single hat. You're the CEO, the janitor, the marketing department, the manufacturer. You're doing absolutely everything.
It's exhausting.
And there's this brilliant, really sobering quote from Gerber that sums up the reality of this stage perfectly. If your business depends on you, you don't own a business, you have a job.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And it's usually the most demanding, unforgiving job you could possibly imagine.
Definitely.
This is actually exactly where the YouTuber Ali Abdaal's story comes into play in our sources, and it illustrates this trap perfectly.
Right, his early days.
Yeah. Before he was a massive creator, Ali started a business aimed at helping students pass the exams to get into medical school. And his technical work, the part he was actually deeply passionate about, was teaching the students.
The fun part.
The fun part. But during this infancy stage of his business, he audited his time and found he was only spending about 5% of his week actually teaching.
Which is astounding, 5% on the actual core value proposition.
Right, and the other 95% of his time. He was dealing with, like, missed DHL deliveries for textbooks, trying to figure out Facebook marketing algorithms, printing physical manuals, fixing endless glitches on his website.
Just putting out fires.
Exactly. He was completely trapped working in his business, bogged down by the daily friction, rather than working on his business from a higher strategic level.
And that painful realization, that total exhaustion, is usually the threshold between infancy and the second stage, adolescence.
Okay, so what happens in adolescence?
Well, adolescence officially begins the moment the owner realizes they're completely overwhelmed. They can't physically work any more hours in the day, and they finally decide to hire some help.
That sounds like a good thing, right?
You'd think so, but this is exactly where the trap springs shut.
Because they don't actually know how to manage people, do they? They just want the pain and the sheer volume of work to magically go away.
Exactly. Instead of delegating tasks using clear systems, documented processes, and measurable guidelines, the exhausted technician practices a highly destructive behavior called management by abdication.
Management by abdication, meaning they don't actually manage the new hire. They just throw their hands up, dump the workload on the new person's desk, and walk away.
Precisely. They hire someone and basically say, here, just handle all the marketing. I don't ever want to look at it again.
Good luck.
Right. They completely abdicate their responsibility as a leader. But because there are no established systems or training protocols in place, the new employee is flying blind.
Of course.
So they inevitably do things differently, or they make a costly mistake, or they simply don't meet the owner's unspoken, undocumented standards.
And the owner's reaction is entirely predictable.
So
They get frustrated, they look at the mistake, and they say the classic line, nobody cares as much as I do. If you want something done right, you have to do it yourself.
We've all heard that.
So they fire the person, or they just quietly take all the work right back onto their own plate.
And the very moment they take that work back, they immediately revert right back to the infancy stage. They shrink the business back down to the exact size of their own personal bandwidth.
It's just a vicious cycle of growing, panicking, abdicating, and shrinking.
Over and over.
So how do we actually break out of that cycle? We've talked about infancy and adolescence, but what does that third stage maturity actually look like? Because if surviving adolescence isn't the goal, what is?
That's a vital distinction. Maturity isn't just surviving the awkward teenage years of a business until things calm down. A mature business is fundamentally different in its DNA.
How so?
It's a stage where the business is built on a foundation of documented systems from day one. A mature business doesn't react to chaos. It anticipates the future and builds processes to handle scale before the scale even happens. To reach maturity, you have to embrace what Gerber calls the turnkey revolution.
Which requires a massive psychological shift, like you have to stop looking for better people and start building better systems.
Yes. You must build a business that relies on ordinary people utilizing highly effective systems rather than relying on extraordinary, highly talented people to heroically save the day.
Right.
The ultimate historical example of this, which Gerber leans heavily on, is the founding of McDonald's by Ray Kroc in 1952.
Oh, it's the perfect example, because Ray Kroc didn't set out to hire the world's greatest Michelin star master chefs to perfectly sear his burgers.
Yeah.
I mean, that model could never scale.
Exactly. He built a system so flawless, so heavily documented, and so rigorously operationalized that anyone with a baseline level of competence could step in, follow the instructions, and produce the exact same high-quality hamburger every single time.
Amazing.
The precise temperature of the fryers, the exact sequence of placing pickles on the bun, the specific dialogue used to greet a customer, it was all an engineered system. The goal here is to mentally imagine that your current business is the flawless prototype for 5,000 more exact replicas just like it.
You're creating a franchise prototype.
Exactly.
And to be clear, this applies even if you have absolutely no intention of ever actually franchising your business, right? It's a mental model to force you to operationalize your work.
Exactly. It's an organizational discipline.
Sure.
You want your output to be systems dependent, not people dependent. And this isn't just about fast food assembly lines.
No.
Ali Abdaal brings up a deeply compelling comparison from his time training in medical school. Hospitals are perhaps the ultimate real-world example of systems-dependent organizations.
Oh, this was such an eye-opening part of his account.
Yeah.
He points out that whether a doctor graduated at the absolute top of their medical school class as this brilliant prodigy, or if they barely scraped by with a 53% at the very bottom of their cohort,
Right.
the actual outcomes for their patients remain largely similar.
Which is incredible because the healthcare system does not, and honestly cannot, rely on the individual, spontaneous genius of every single doctor walking the halls.
That would be terrifying.
Right. It relies on strict, rigorously tested clinical guidelines. If a patient comes into the emergency room presenting with a specific type of severe infection, the system dictates the exact step-by-step antibiotic protocol to initiate.
Yes.
If a patient has early pregnancy bleeding, there's a clear, documented management guideline that every doctor follows. The system dictates the action, and therefore, the system protects the outcome.
Right. Which means if a brilliant doctor gets sick or quits, another competent doctor can step right into that shift, pick up the chart, and the hospital just continues to function perfectly.
The system insulates the final product from the natural variability of human talent.
Now, I have to bring up the biggest fear that creative professionals have when they hear
Yeah,
this.
I know exactly what you're going to say.
Doesn't standardizing everything kill the magic? I mean, if I'm a creative writing scripts or editing YouTube videos, or if I'm Sarah trying to bake an artisanal small batch pie,
Yeah.
I don't want to be a McDonald's assembly line robot. It just feels like systemizing art strips the very soul out of the work.
That is the exact visceral reaction, the exact fear that most technicians have when they hear the word systems. They equate systems with mediocrity and rigid bureaucracy.
Right, it feels clinical.
But the evidence points in the exact opposite direction. Take Pixar, for example, referencing the insights from the book Creativity, Inc. Pixar consistently makes some of the most deeply creative, magical, soul-stirring art in the history of cinema. But they do not just sit around in a circle waiting for the muse of inspiration to strike.
No.
No, they use a highly systemized, rigorous, almost industrial process for their storyboarding, their daily feedback loops, and their rendering pipelines. They have engineered a system that practically guarantees a narrative masterpiece.
Wow, that reframes it completely. And Ali Abdaal adapted this exact mindset for his YouTube channel, didn't he?
He did.
He relies heavily on SOPs, standard operating procedures, and these highly detailed playbooks for his video production.
Yeah.
He realized that if Pixar can systemize the magic of a feature film, he can certainly systemize the production of a weekly video.
Exactly. Having a system doesn't kill creativity. It is actually the ultimate protector of it. Think about how an SOP works in video editing. The system dictates the baseline, repetitive, technical tasks.
The boring stuff.
Right. The SOP says, here is the exact folder structure for importing raw footage. Here is the specific color grading template to apply. Here is where we store our licensed B-roll.
Gotcha.
By writing all of that down and turning it into an automatic process, you remove the friction. The system handles all that heavy, boring lifting automatically, which completely frees up the human mind and its very limited cognitive load to focus on the actual storytelling.
That makes so much sense.
You use the system to build the foundation, and that allows you to sprinkle the creative jazz on top. You aren't wasting mental energy reinventing the wheel every time you sit down at your computer. You follow the baseline system, and then you apply your unique human spark to the nuanced parts of the final product.
It's like building the scaffolding first so that you can actually safely reach the top of the wall to paint the mural.
That's a great way to put it.
So the paradigm shift is this. Instead of being the person endlessly baking the pie, you have to become the person who is designing and building the machine that bakes the pie. Your business itself becomes your actual product.
Which brings us to the final, and perhaps the most profound, realization in Gerber's framework. He calls it your primary aim.
Your primary aim.
Yeah. In the concluding chapters of the book, which he beautifully frames as a direct letter to Sarah the Pie Baker, he synthesizes the ultimate takeaway of all this system building.
It's a sobering thought, but so necessary. The primary aim is this. Your business is a means to an end, and that end is your life.
It is remarkably easy to lose sight of that when you are drowning in the daily grind, answering emails at midnight, putting out fires constantly.
Definitely.
But if the business consumes your entire existence, if it leaves you with absolutely no time for your family, your physical health, or your own personal joy, then the business has fundamentally failed its primary purpose.
Wow.
It doesn't matter if it generates $1 million in revenue. If it takes your life away rather than giving you more freedom and more life, it is a failure.
That is a profound perspective shift. And to you listening right now, we really want you to take a hard, honest look at your current projects, your job, or just your daily workflow. Are you actively, intentionally building a machine that serves your life? Or have you accidentally built a machine where you are just an exhausted, overworked cog spinning faster and faster just to stay in place?
It is the stark difference between working in your business as a technician and working on your business as an entrepreneur and manager. Moving from the former to the latter is really the only path to achieving true operational freedom.
And to help you actually start making that critical shift, we want to leave you with a final, provocative thought experiment to chew on today.
Yes, think about this.
It builds right on that concept of the franchise prototype we just discussed.
So think about your daily work right now. If you were forced by some emergency to completely step away from your daily tasks tomorrow, like no phone, no email, total isolation, what is the exact first thing that would break?
Right. I identify that specific point of failure.
Exactly. But here's the challenge. Don't fix the break by just diving back in and doing the work yourself. Realize that that exact point of failure is actually the perfect blueprint for the very first system you need to build. Thank you so much for joining us in this deep dive. We'll see you next time.